Paris to this young generation of the artists. And the School of Paris at that time was not a French phenomenon. If you look at the School of Paris of I would say from 1915 till the 39, that was the international movement. The artists from Russia, like Kandinsky, Marc Chagall, the creation of the Abstraction Création in 1931, 8 years ago, that brought that lots of the international artists practically from around the Europe. The Surrealist movement, if you look at who was who in that movement, that's practically the people from Spain, Italy, Germany. And so each of those artists brought his or her own experience and the approach, and that's in that sort of a multicultural, multi-artistic, multi-philosophical, and multi-ethical group. The result of those approaches were quite phenomenal, and that was kind of the conglomerate, so to speak, was eventually brought to the North American continent after the outbreak of World War II. If you look at the group of the artists who arrived to the United States, that was the principal members of the avant-garde, Juan Miró, Salvador Dali, Hans Arp, and the members of the Bauhaus, that first, major movement, Walter Gropius, Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, and they provided a very strong influence of what we see today in the modernist architecture on the North American continent, be it in United States or in Canada. Fred Valentine, who is the major architect in Calgary, and the author of this beautiful Nova building and a couple of the buildings, those that I've forgotten the name, but there is Alberta. I think Alberta Gas on the 11th Avenue and the 1st Street. He was the last student of Walter Gropius before Gropius' retirement. So that direct influence was very much apparent. But going back to this exhibition, because I could cruise around for the very long time. What we see the very strong representation of the artists who were associated with that avant-garde movement in 1940s. We see that wall in the South Gallery, the influence of the European modernism, and in the works of Lisa Gervais, Goodrich Roberts, and Alain Alain, and others. And then what we see here is that major representation of the abstract expressionism, that camaraderie of Paul-Émile Bourdois and Jean-Paul Riopel and others. And many of those members, many of these artists were the original signatories of Refuse Global in 1948, which was the very seminal document changing the social and cultural fabric of Quebec, at least creating that strong base for the future changes. And it was actually the very brave. If we look at the history of Quebec in the 1948 under that fascist governance of Duplessis and that strong yoke of the church hierarchy that practically limited the artistic expressions, the Refuse Global was a very brave statement and actually made the major breakthrough in the understanding of who we are and in terms of the cultural and social identity of the younger generation of Quebecers. And what we see, and what we saw eventually in 1960s, that was the response or the direct influence of the Refuse Global. Price was huge. Bourdois, who was a dean at the École de Meubles, was expelled and without no chance for employment anywhere in Quebec. He was still very Ray was first trying to survive as an artist and as an art educator. There was a lot of the clandestine places where the artists exhibited. They had no access whatsoever to the galleries. All the galleries were reserved to that very conservative art of the reflected only the social or the realism, and was reserved only to the prime members of the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts at that time. The Royal Canadian Academy of Arts of today is completely different than it was 50, 60 years ago. Bourdois left eventually for New York, where he had a few exhibitions. He made these major contacts with the principal artists from the New York School of Art, and they helped him to eventually with the exhibitions. And eventually, 1955, he left for Paris on invitation from Jean-Paul Riopel. Riopel left Canada in 1948, and he played a very significant role in Paris, being the animator and instigator of several exhibitions of that young Quebec avant-garde of the 50s, 60s. And when we look at those three works in that section, we see that early works of Paul-Émile Bourdois from the 1950s, then Riopel from early 50s, 51, and then Bourdois again from 55. So 48, I believe that piece was executed in Paris, and the Bourdois, we don't know. It's actually, when I look at the album and the archival material, it could be either the last piece he did in New York or one of the first works he did after the arrival in Paris. This exhibition has, as I said, the works of the signatories. Some of the artists have been signatories of Refuse Global. There are only two alive members. It's Marcel Barbeau with that work over there, and François Solevan with the works at the upper level. They are still practicing artists. Barbeau peregrinates commutes between Montreal and Paris. In Calgary, he is represented by Virginia Christopher Gallery, but I understand there is a few works that will be on the exhibition at the Masters Gallery. Sullivan, I believe Masters used to or still represents her work, but notice, so the show reflects and presents the best of that movement. The exhibition came from the Musée de Bas-Saint-Laurent in Rivière-du-Loup in northern Quebec. We've had a very good arrangements and collaborations with that institutions. It took us 2 years to negotiate that show, but I think it's a great show that raises your spirit during that cold and brutal winter period. Some of the works came from the other sources. We're very thankful to Rod Green of the Masters Gallery for arranging work by Riopel and work by Paul-Émile Bourdois. We are thankful to Greg Pyra for lending us the quite interesting work by François Sullivan. We're grateful to the Little Arts Museum for lending another piece by Riopel upstairs. But we are mostly grateful to our sponsors, and without your support, we wouldn't have that presentation in Calgary. So I'd like to acknowledge the phenomenal contributions of Jim Hill, Michael Graham, but also of Lynn and Greg Robb. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And just the last thing to mention, Quebec Connections. for the past 7 years, the Triangle Gallery has been a producer and organizer of the Winter Art Stroll. So we're taking the theme from our January exhibition and invite the local public, commercial and galleries and artisan centers, art collectives and artist studios. So this year we organized the Quebec Connection in conjunction with the presentation of the Quiet Mutinies, and also in conjunction with the centennial celebrations of abstract art. You know, the works have been created, not a recent phenomenon, they've been created in 1910 and 1911 by Franciszek Kupka, Czech painter and graphic artist and a professor of the Academy of Fine Arts in Prague, and Vasily Kandinsky. These guys were the first artists who consciously created the non-presentational abstract work. So there is several exhibitions that deal with that excellence in abstract art. So I'd like to take the moment and acknowledge the phenomenal response to our invitations by Alberta Printmakers Society, Art 5 Artist Collective, Art Gallery of Calgary, Herringer Keys Gallery, Influx Jewelry Gallery, Masters Gallery, New Zones Gallery, the New Gallery, Paul Kuhn Fine Arts Gallery, Untitled Art Society, the Vice Gallery, and the Stoneworks Gallery. And the details you have in our propaganda brochure for this event. We would like to thank very much Rhonda Barber for designing this beautiful publications. And I know the weather is very brutal, so bundle up, enjoy the show, and enjoy the Winter Art Stroll. Explore the best.